Hi guys, I'm Chris.
And I'm Mike.
And welcome back to this week's No Limits, a Mitch Rapp Podcast. So how you doing this week, Mike?
It's been a good week. I mean, my soccer team won the European Championships. Forza Italia.
They did.
So that was good. But man, how about you? How's the new house? You're just, 2 weeks in to the new house?
Yes. Yeah, it's going well. So, I guess I'll just say it here that we had to take a little bit of a break. So I had some little family issues to take care of. But we're back now. And I wanted to thank all those who reached out to me for the kind words. That was very thoughtful. But yeah, I'm back at the house trying to put things together. I'm potting in a different location than our last podcast because I went to go plug in my computer halfway through and proceeded to electrocute myself, which I have the electrician coming next week to address that.
Oh, you do?
So,
good.
Yes,
So
yes.
You're not sitting on a mini fridge next to a sump pump using the plug of the sump pump to plug in your laptop. You're not going to electrocute yourself.
No.
Okay.
I am instead, my computer is sitting on my bed, and I'm sitting on a bench that normally sits at the end of my bed. But a little peel behind the curtain here. Here, I'm going no backrest,
You need some lumbar support. You got to get that lumbar chair.
Yeah, I know. I'm looking for the right chair for my desk. That'll be in the living room. So,
Amazon Prime, man, 2 days. Wayfair. You ever use Wayfair?
I have.
Furniture?
I have used.
They're
Wayfair.
pretty good.
They are. I'm just worried of
good.
buying something online that I haven't sat in.
Right.
But, anyways.
All right, enough about chairs and
our
the
world.
Furman household.
Yes. But no, everybody, we're doing good, and we're back to potting. So thanks for allowing us to take that week off, and we even spread out one of our last podcasts over a couple weeks.
Yeah.
So
You know what else we're back to?
We're back.
Kill Shot. I know you've been talking about Kill Shot for a little while. I know
One
you
of my
like
favorite
it.
books. One of my favorite books.
Awesome. I guess I'll just say it now. A little bit of a hot take, but I sense this is probably the book you and I are going to disagree on the most. Not saying I did not like it. I liked it.
Are you saying you're going to put it on the bottom third of your rap books and I'm going to put it in the top third of my rap books? Is that what you're saying?
I'm thinking that's where we're going to end up.
Wow.
I haven't disclosed my ranking. You haven't disclosed yours, but I get the sense that part 2 next week, this is going to be on opposite ends of our list.
Interesting. I mean, I guess, we're going to talk about all these things and, this book has flaws. I'll say that, but I don't know. I really enjoyed it. I don't know why. I was really trying to pinpoint it down, and I think I'll address some of those points as we dig into the plot. But yeah, it's just maybe I'm a sucker for Paris. I love French scenery, the French food, French fries.
I'm with you, and I gotta say that's part of why I was left wanting quite a bit. In that the descriptions of the city, the people, the locals, I feel like was not the usual Vince style, or it wasn't as detailed,
I'll give you that.
Textured as some of the other locations. And if there's one location I really want to buy into, the way Vince usually sets the scene, I wanted it to be this one. And I just felt in setting and descriptions, it fell a little short. So I didn't have that kind of feel of Paris that I was hoping for, that Vince clearly has done with so many other places, like just Beirut last book, right? Like that might have been his
or
best
like some
example.
Town like a Banderbas,
right? Or even
wherever,
Memorial Day when they're on the run through Southeast Virginia,
right.
Like I felt like I was transported to this middle of nowhere, 3 hours outside of Richmond, Virginia, small town, and knew it better than in this book being in Paris, at all the sites.
Right.
So.
Well, I mean, do you want to just dive right in?
Let's do it.
Keep it going. Okay,
give us the rundown.
I will say this book came out in 2012, right? Mm-hmm. February of 2012. And I thought it was interesting because we got American Assassin in 2010. like in the normal time frame that we got a Vince Flynn book. Almost a year and a half passed. And then later on that year, in November of 2012, we get The Last Man.
Right.
So this book was delayed.
Well, let's address the elephant in the room.
No, I mean, of course.
I don't know about you, but I teared up with the prelude.
Oh, yes.
Yes. I actually did. Vince is talking about his diagnosis. This book was published, shortly after, it seems. You said, what, February 2012 it was published?
Mm-hmm.
After receiving the news that would forever change the trajectory of his life and his family's life. And he was really heartfelt in wanting to thank those who helped him get where he is. And he wanted to show courage, even though I can only imagine how hard that would be to find and dig up after knowing you have a terminal illness. But I mean, just listen to this from the prelude, or not even the prelude, I guess, the acknowledgments. Starting off the book with dedication and acknowledgments, Vince writes, quote, "Instead of facing the scariest moment of your life alone, you find yourself surrounded by people you care about and who genuinely care for you." And he had just so many sentences as beautifully crafted and heartfelt as that one. And just, this book is very important to me for that purpose. I might nitpick some other things in the plot line, but I absolutely understand where Vince and his family were at during the process of getting this book to print.
Yeah, it's hard. Maybe that's why I like it so much. I mean, and then I love Last Man too. Like these two sort of. And I'm wondering do you think Last Man? I would love to know the inner workings of like when they obviously chose to release these two in the same year. When was each one written? After
the
American
draft.
Assassin, the draft. Was he working on Last Man and then he started working on American Assassin and then he just had all these ideas? Or, he said he always knew like the backstory of Mitch Rapp from at least the basis of it. I mean, we could even see it on the pages.
Right.
Then he had a chance to flesh that out. But was it always we're going to immediately follow this up with Kill Shot? I don't. We gotta like. Yeah. I would love to understand that whole gap in that year. Why we didn't get a Vince Flynn book.
And I think that's something that's going to come up as we break down the plot of Kill Shot is the gap between that and Transfer of Power. And we know Vince didn't leave notes and write a lot down. Right. He often made the stories in his mind as he went, and was a master of that practice. So I guess no one will ever know what his plan was for filling that gap with the third book, because this is very clearly a trilogy. Sure. American Assassin, Kill Shot, and then whatever is the bridge to Transfer of Power.
Right.
So I mean, I gotta believe he had a plan or an idea that he wanted to go there, and then knowing it was his last book, The Last Man is almost a masterpiece.
It's very good.
Right, and just a couple of scenes from it stick out to me, and I know we'll get there next month. But it also shows an aging Hurley. Right. I think that was really important to Vince. Instead of rushing through the third part of this trilogy, ending his life by catching up with Mitch in the current world, right? Catching up with Mitch in real life, and Hurley, at the end of his life and towards the end of his days. And man,
and it's also interesting if you think about it, because it isn't I may be mixing this up with Survivor, but doesn't Rapp get final revenge against Louis Gould, or is that not till the Survivor?
I think it blends into the Survivor, but you're right. Louis Gould comes back and plays a big role in Last Man. So
it's Vince like trying to wrap up all these things, knowing that this might be his last two books, or whatever. He wants to bring these characters back and say one final thing on them.
Maybe that's why this one felt a little rushed to me in terms of the details, knowing The Last Man was that what do you call it, that final opus that he wanted to get out to the world.
But I'm also wondering if like a lot of these things that we're going to nitpick in this podcast and in the next, if we got to see that third book or even a fourth book, whatever, they would be fine. You know, we only are willing to nitpick them because we don't understand them and we want to know the conclusions of a lot of these things, you know.
Right.
It's like Game of Thrones, right? You know, it's I don't know if you're a Game of Thrones reader, but you know, I want to know how the story ends in George's mind. You know, and you leave it to someone else to do it on the screen and didn't do that good of a job. But anyways, you know, it's like, I don't know. I think that if we had gotten the third book, a lot of these things that would have been, you know, I think it's going to be very hard though. And I almost think that that's why they don't want either why Kyle says he has said he's willing to do it or but he hasn't been allowed to do it. And I do think it would be very hard because you would have to almost study these first two books and then go back and sort of do what we just did for our podcast and then pick up all the threads to carefully place everything that's needed in that book because it has to connect. It's like the linchpin of this entire series, even though it's not needed.
No.
But in order to be a good book, it has to be that linchpin.
It would be, you're right, it would be a real delicate balance. But I think as we see, you know, as we jump into this, we're going to see those opportunities, you know, served up on a silver platter. Like Vince left some nuggets here of where this story could be taken. And so, I think it'd be a hard job. I think somebody would have to prove themselves that they can command this series, and Kyle's done that. So if he or the Flynn estate or whoever is in charge makes that decision, it would be a tough one, but I think it's a challenge I would like to see attempted. For sure.
Definitely. For sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, like we kick off most of our part one podcasts, let me give you the Goodreads and the Amazons. So, just like Rotten Tomatoes, take these with a grain of salt. The Goodreads scores is a solid 4.31, which we were just discussing before the pod. Most of Vince's novels have around a 4.3, except for American Assassin, which has a 4.25. It's actually the lowest rated book on Goodreads.
Fake news. Move on.
Well, it does have 71,000. And Amazon has a 4.6 out of 5, 3,600 reviews. And the summary goes like this. In the years since the CIA trained and then unleashed him, Mitch Rapp has dismantled, killed by untraceable kill, the network of monsters behind the Pan Am Lockerbie terrorist attack. The hunt leads to Paris, where a deadly trap is sprung as the bullets leaves Rapp's silenced pistol, followed by the discovery of 9 bodies, including a Libyan oil minister, in one of the city's finest hotels. Washington wants no part of this international crisis, and Rapp is deemed a liability by Stan Hurley, one of his handlers. But as he slips outside their control to operate on his own, it will soon become clear that nothing is more dangerous than a wounded and cornered Mitch Rapp. Ooh, I like that last sentence.
Ooh, last line is good.
It will soon be clear that nothing is more dangerous than a wounded and cornered Mitch Rapp. That's pretty good.
Dude, that's fantastic. And it takes us into the prelude. Like, that captures how Vince wanted to kick off this book, because we see a meeting of the top brass, you know, running the Orion team.
Yeah.
And Doc Lewis is expressing some reservations. We know in American Assassin, he was in Rapp's corner, his psychological profile, his physical profile, and Doc Lewis is the reason Rapp didn't quit. Rapp was sick of Hurley, kind of sick of Kennedy and Stansfield, who he didn't really know that well, but he was sick of the whole program. And Doc Lewis, he plays Jedi mind tricks, and he gets Rapp to stay and take the job and see things through. But here, Lewis is now saying, are there signs that someone like this, who's been so perfect at the top of their game, are so good that they could turn on us? What if they're so intent on rooting out everyone who's evil? Well, guess what? Everybody makes bad decisions. And so what if that person then, this black and white, mindset, then looks at our mistakes as the CIA, right? Because we've made mistakes institutionally.
Right.
Individuals who are good and patriots have made mistakes at certain times. So what if this kind of black and white operative reads that as a target to eliminate and go rogue? Not because Rapp's lost it or hates America or has some grievance, but simply because of he is now the purveyor of justice. And in his mind, what if he wants to dole that out to people on the home front?
And I thought it was very interesting that Lewis says that, because doesn't eventually Rapp do that with like some of these politicians, like in later books?
But with Stansfield's blessing.
With Stansfield's blessing or Irene's blessing, obviously. Yeah, exactly. But I just thought that was funny how, it comes full circle. Rapp, that is actually something that Rapp does eventually do.
Right. I guess at this point in his career, he's only working on this hit list of international terrorists, like the Libyan oil minister, that he's about to take out. And so, yeah, I think it's brilliant for Vince to address what will become Rapp's job, to take out our internal enemies, foreign and domestic.
Foreign and domestic, yeah.
He's hinting at this now very early on. I think, a year or two he's been operating after his training. So it's really...
It's been a year since the farm.
1 year. Yeah, so he's only been in this whole program a year and 6 months, really, so far.
Right.
And we get some foreshadowing here as well, right off the bat in the prelude, where Vince writes, quote, "At this very moment, he was about to do something very illegal and unsanctioned in a country where he could not afford to make even the slightest mistake. I'm worried about him because he's about to kill a high-ranking official in the capital of one of our closest allies." That right there makes me say, let's go. Let's go. I want it.
And by saying that, it's not going to go well. Like, right. It's clearly setting it up for, something. And I just wanted to say, like, maybe one of the reasons why I love this book is because it reminds me a lot of, like, the first Mission Impossible movie. Like, that story with Ethan Hunt where, like, they go in, they have a mission, and obviously I'm jumping ahead, like, past the prelude into this first chapter where we meet up with Mitch, and he's in Paris, and he's about to take down this target, and he has this, like, bad feeling. He's going to take out this Libyan oil minister who's, obviously did something, gave money to terrorists, whatever. But he's like, all right, he has this feeling, but he goes in, and then takes him out, executes him perfectly, and is about to get out of there, and then he hears, like, the sound, and everything goes to hell. Mm-hmm. And it just, I don't know, it reminds me of, and then obviously he then has to run because he gets shot and whatever. But it reminds me of Mission Impossible because it's like sort of like the same thing where they go in, they have this mission, they execute it, and then everyone dies except for obviously Tom Cruise. And then he has to, take away. And then sprinkle it in a little bit of Jason Bourne-esque throughout this entire novel.
Sure.
A little bit of Bourne Supremacy, a little bit of Bourne Identity thrown in here. So I love those two movies. And obviously, there's some tropes taken from that in this book, so maybe that's why I also love this book. But.
Now, let's be clear, though. We are not advocating for casting Tom Cruise as Mitch Rapp.
Oh, no. No.
No.
Yeah, I think we've already said our casting. I actually like Gerard Butler as a Mitch Rapp.
Yeah, we've been down that road before.
Or Colin Farrell. Yeah.
No, you're right. I agree with your comparison there, and a couple of other one-liners that stick out go to some of the storylines in those books. Like, I'm thinking Bourne. Here it says, quote, "Until he had some answers, his survival instincts told him to do what he was trained to do, operate on his own and under everyone's radar, including the CIA's." But, I mean, Jason Bourne, right. That kicks in when his memory is, missing of all of his training. He operates on his own. He's got to figure out who he is and who's responsible for him. And then, like Stansfield, thinking about Bourne's handlers, it says, "Stansfield's contacts ran deep, and his ability to see 3 moves ahead of his enemies had always made him a formidable foe. Stansfield saw angles and opportunities where others saw chaos, danger, and a problem not worth tackling." Typical storyline in a movie, right. And a lot of other series as well, but Vince is pulling it off with characters we love, so I love seeing those storylines here.
So, all right, talking about movies, why haven't they made this Mitch Rapp movie? Like, they made American Assassin. This would have been a perfect movie.
This could be a good one.
Especially with Dylan O'Brien, like, and Tom, or not Tom. Who was Hurley again? Shit.
Michael Keaton.
Michael Keaton, yeah, Michael Keaton.
Oh, yeah. And then Victor. You can cast somebody awesome for a Victor. I know they had a Victor in the last movie. They had a Victor. Maybe that person could come back, but
they killed him.
Like, that's true.
You could just make another character that. Like,
you can make another character, right? Yeah. Call him Chet. Oh wait, right. That's Victor's real name.
That's Victor's real name. Right.
I guess we'll get there to Victor, but let's talk about the actual scene, like the actual hit.
Yes.
But I agree with you. This would have been a great choice for a movie. I actually think this storyline I might have enjoyed more as a movie than a book. So I think you're onto something there. But this scene would have been cool to see, where Rapp is going after this oil minister, the next on a top secret list, a hit list from Stansfield, Kennedy, and the intelligence folks. And he thinks it's a clean hit. He's rappelling off the side of a hotel, gets onto the balcony, gets in the door, makes a clean shot on the guy, right? Rapp likes to get close for the kill shot, as we see, I think, in chapter 2 or 3?
Yeah, like we get the title right away. Right away.
Yeah. And he thinks he'll make a clean getaway, and he saves the prostitute, right? Because Libyan oil minister in Paris, obviously, there's a prostitute in the room. Rapp's able to protect her, just kill his guy, about to head out on the balcony, rappel down the rope, and all hell breaks loose. A team of, I think, 5 guys bust in the door, spraying bullets. Rapp quickly assesses they're not trained operatives. There's some sort of hodgepodge group, maybe security personnel of some sort, because they're just spraying bullets, hundreds of rounds. And Rapp ducks behind the bed, is able to evade them, take them all out, couple quick shots. But as he's escaping onto the balcony, about to jump, rappel down the rope, he takes a hit to the shoulder. So he's been shot. Is this, I guess, the first time? Was he shot in American Assassin?
No.
I don't think so. No.
Not the first time he was shot. I guess the first time he was shot was in Executive Power, right? When he gets shot in the ass.
Sure, but in the chronological storyline.
Oh, yeah.
First time he shot in his career.
True. Right. Yeah.
And he's on his own now because he doesn't know who to trust, who turned on him, who leaked this information, who knew that I was going to hit the oil minister tonight, because they were obviously prepared.
Yeah, I like all the sort of like quick exposition we get in his head, where he's like, like he runs down that list of things you just said, but he's like, oh, I can't think about those right now. I need to deal with these like 5 people. And it's very interesting. We get like sort of the flip version of this attack from Samir's, who's running these goons who end up getting killed. And, you know, they've been watching that. They've also been watching the Libyan oil minister, and they're trying to catch Rapp, because it's been crazy since the last time we saw him. He's gone on this huge tear, just clipping all these people. And it's like, who is this guy? Like, it
right.
reminded me of like the idea of Ghost from the movie. Like, Rapp is actually Ghost. Like, he's this guy who's been coming in, you know, and Lewis mentions it during the prelude that Rapp wants people to think about me at night. Like, he wants these people on this list to think about him potentially, you know, coming for him, and think about his face, or like what is, not what his actual face is, but what his face could be, you know?
Yeah. And that's part of the...
I just love that. But obviously it doesn't sound like a sane person. It doesn't sound like a sane person at all.
Well, no, but I like that it's a little deeper than that, because last book we saw divisions between the leadership, right? Do you support Hurley or do you support Irene? You know, Hurley obviously doesn't like Rapp. He wants to rein him in. He didn't recruit him. He's not military. Well, that point divides them further, in that Hurley, and I think even Kennedy, feel like if these guys know we're coming for them, if they pick up a pattern that there's a super assassin out there who can creep up on them at any time, they're gonna retreat, right? They're gonna hide in their bunkers. They're gonna go behind, you know, security walls. It's gonna be harder for us to get to them if they expect this predictability of a super assassin on the loose. And Rapp's like, hell no, that's what I want. I don't care if it's harder. I'll still get to them, and I get the satisfaction of knowing they're cowering and then they're scared shitless. It's like a drone attack, right?
But the one thing that saves him is the line that he says to Lewis. That's sort of like, instead of being a complete psychopath, right? He says, I want them to feel, I'm not like you, I don't have the exact quote, but I want them to feel something similar to the pain or, the fear that they caused other people.
Right.
And that, in my mind, is retribution.
Right.
By doing that, by making them being scared shitless of this, ghost that's going to come get them, he's, inflicting something similar to what they've done to, millions or thousands of people, whatever.
I think that's when Lewis and Stansfield are like, okay, he's not just crazy.
Right.
He has a rationale of why he wants to operate that way.
Lewis is just like, he's obviously the shrink, so he even says, like, I feel like for 5 minutes, or I talked to him for a couple hours, and I feel like I know Rapp completely, and then the next 5 hours, I feel like I haven't gained any ground, It's like I went 10 steps forwards, 30 steps back.
Right.
Rapp is an enigma,
He is. Yeah, big time.
But at the same time, he's an open book,
Yep, you're right. You mentioned Samir, so we do spend some time inside the terrorist head, and Samir was like a true zealot.
Oh, very
just
much so.
Very much a hardliner, and he's also rather well trained, but he's kind of in bed with the wrong folks. And there's this really interesting dynamic here going on at the church scene. What'd you think about that?
Well, first of all, why do we even need Samir as a character? Why couldn't it just be Rafik?
Right.
So we get the first mention of, after, obviously, just to recap, after this shootout, everyone sort of goes on the run. Like, we have, Hurley and everyone over in the United States are dealing with the fallout of this. We have Rapp on the run, which we're going to talk about, like, some of his scenes on the Seine, and that was kind of cool chapters. And then we get, like, the French are involved, and then we actually, like, dive deep into this terrorist and how they're connected with Fournier, who's, the director of the DGSE, or high up at the DGSE.
Yeah, French intelligence.
Yeah, and they have this meeting at the Sacré-Cœur, which is a very beautiful church. And there's this other guy, Max Vega. And you were even saying that you think that there's too many characters in this novel. And I agree with you.
This Max guy, right? Like, he's half...
And we get a whole backstory on him.
Yeah, he's Saudi, but he's also like a Spanish telecommunications millionaire. So he's using all his fortune from his Western educated side to fund terrorism because he identifies very closely with his Saudi father. Is that a necessary character? Like you said, Samir and Rafik Aziz are at these meetings. Why not one or the other? Because, I mean, when Rafik Aziz's name is dropped...
they don't even say Aziz, they just say Rafik.
They just say
his brother Rafik. And you're like, oh shit, that's Rafik Aziz?
Dude, I lost it. I was like, oh shit, I forgot. This is about the Scar. We're going back to Transfer of Power. We're linking, American Assassin to Transfer of Power. And the hinge is going to be Rafik. And we're going to get this awesome storyline of Rapp going after him. And then it doesn't pan out. Not to spoil part 2 next week, but when Vince name dropped Rafik, I was like out of my mind excited. And he literally just stands in this meeting and then is mentioned once or twice later on in the book and does nothing else.
It's very disappointing. I think even when we did the Transfer of Power episode, we mentioned, like, wait, so do we get this in Killshot? Like, we couldn't remember if we did or not. And we don't.
I thought we get the Scar scene. And when his name was not mentioned again, I'm like, oh shit, that's the third book, though. That's what we were talking about.
Yeah, the scene I was thinking about is Rapp's first kill from American Assassin. I was sort of like conflating the two, thinking that like that was Rafik and he somehow got Rafik, him or whatever. But yeah, like...
No, but that's the third book. That's why we need the trilogy completed.
That's why we need the trilogy. Yeah, I mean, if anything, just to bridge Rafik to, understanding that huge plot line, or like that plot hole that we got, vivid description of in multiple books.
But look at what Vince is doing, right? It's eye candy, if you will, if you know the story and you read it in publication order. Like, I lost my shit when I saw Rafiq's name.
Oh, I did too.
But
it was just his first
just the first name was
first
enough.
name.
I love it. But if you're also a new reader and you're reading
it doesn't spoil it at all.
Chronological order, it also sets the seed, because you read this book thinking, okay, that's a random guy in the background. What's going on? But then when Samir
He's
is
the
taken
only
out,
one that lives.
when Max is gone, when Fournier's gone, well, then Rafiq is like, shit, how do I rebuild this network? So if Rafiq were to come up in a Kill Shot sequel, even for new readers reading in chronological order, they would also have the same, name drop, oh shit, excitement moment. So that's just brilliant by Vince to think of all fans and where they're from. And it makes me want that third book even more.
It for that reason alone, yeah, it's really frustrating.
Man, I love that. I love that. I mean, but what they're talking about at this meeting is that Fournier, the head of French intelligence and Homeland Defense, is actually cutting deals with the terrorists through this Max Vega billionaire guy. What do you think of this concept? Because once it clicked for me, it worked. He's basically buying them off with intelligence, and in return, they're not striking France.
Yeah.
Ugh.
In retrospect, I had to read this chapter like twice. Not the whole chapter, but just like this part to understand. Because I don't think Fournier is like a bad guy. Like, I mean,
he's doing a deal with the devil.
He's not a terrorist. Like, he's padding his pockets, but he does say whatever. Like, he wants, the Republic first, like France first.
True. He's protecting his country.
He's protecting his country.
He may be doing his job well. You're right.
He's not a villain per se. Like, the ultimate villain is, the terrorist and whatever. But not a good dude. We'll say that. But I had to read.
A bad hombre, you might say.
What is he doing? Like, why is he doing that? Is he just doing it for money? Is he a corrupt cop? But
no, protection.
He's corrupt, like in the sense that he's getting his money. But he says that a lot of these DGS people, get their money, and I'm sure the same thing happens in the CIA. But he's doing it for his country, and once that, like you said, once that clicked, I got it. I understand his motives, why this was set up. It's essentially like, I don't know, us aligning with the training the Mujahideen, right?
Right.
And then them turning on us.
Exactly.
To fight the Russians, and then boom, once the Russians are gone, they turn right on us. So
right, we arm them the same way Fournier is giving them the intelligence. They might stay off your back or fight with you for a little while, in the 80s, early 90s, they were with us. But then, like, it never works out for you. And this has to be real life. Like, can you imagine? And I know this is super simple.
I'm sure stuff like this happens all the time.
Right. I was going to take 9/11, but let's take something like maybe the London, underground bombing.
Sure.
What do they call the metro system there? The tube.
The tube. It's like there's 777 or like.
What if someone in the leadership of ISIS or whatever other group may have been responsible then literally came to an intelligence official through back channels and said, look, we're going to hit the West. It doesn't have to be London. What can you do for me? And we'll move it to Brussels.
Right.
We'll move it to Paris. Right. We'll move it to Berlin. Like, would you take that deal? Like, London doesn't get hit. I guess you're right.
For Queen and Country. For Queen and Country, baby.
Right.
I don't know. I hope it's awful to think about, that.
Is that good? Is that good intelligence work and national defense? Long run, no.
It's
but
not
short
good.
term,
it's not
yes.
For a short term. It's a short term, but it's not good for the long run, because then just allowing that stuff to happen in general just leads to more stuff. Because just like I said, they're going to turn on you eventually.
There's got to be Fourniers out there though making deals with the devil like this.
I mean, like, what is an asset? Like, who are our assets? Like, they're manipulated people that,
right.
I don't know, like, I love the show Homeland, and I love any CIA show where they show you just the insight of what, is obviously hyperbole, but just like trying to being a case officer and
Right.
bringing someone in, making these deals. So I'm sure the Fourniers exist.
Here's a different way of thinking about, not to belabor this point, but it's also on a much more micro scale, the same way a group like the Taliban took over so many villages, Pakistan, Afghanistan, the countryside. The people didn't generally support what they were doing, but they would come in and you had to pay the bribe. You had to pay them not to hit, your daughter's wedding, or you had to pay them to not show up at your door and take, your sisters away. And it's like, you can only pay the bribe for so long that they'll stay off your back. But eventually there's going to be that straw that breaks the camel's back, and they're just going to take over your village and terrorize you.
Either you decide not to pay the bribe and they attack you, or you try to attack them and they attack back. So,
or shit gets bad for them, or they're desperate, or they want food, or they want more wives, and they're going to come anyway,
Right. Yeah.
Shit. Vince that's something deep.
It's interesting to think about that whole setup, because I think if you just read through it quickly, you can be like, oh, he's just a corrupt cop, or a corrupt intelligence official. But when you look at it sort of deeper, he's almost a man that doesn't have a choice. That
you're right.
Needs to do this. He's been assigned to do something like this, and he's looking out for himself a little bit, but also looking out for his country. So,
all right, now let's get to the good players, because we've got the good cop Neville, which we'll get to, and she is a fantastic.
She's a big
character.
part in the second in the second part, but just getting introduced to her, she's both those chapters were very much like Law and Order esque chapters of her casing this crime scene. We never really gotten that before in a rap novel, which was kind of cool.
The closest I could think about her being this police commander, right, who really deserves to have full authority over the crime scene, but Fournier and his intelligence spooks are sneaking around. For example, they take away the rope that Rapp used,
right?
So he's hiding that from the police, so they'll be not on his tail. I think they might have moved around some shell casings or something. They didn't have much time, but they got the rope, which was the main piece of evidence. Well, you get the sense that Neville would have put the pieces together and realized it was an inside job. She would have realized somebody, the assassin, probably was running away and got shot,
right?
Which means there's another shooter, right? The assassin's not the only one to have gotten away. Another shooter got away, who turns out is the one who killed the 3 other innocent people on his way out the front door of the hotel.
Which is a key clue that Rapp uses to show his innocence. But.
So all this, I love the Law and Order. You're totally right. It also reminded me of Act of Treason and Agent Rivera. Remember the man with the red hat when the motorcade was hit?
I thought you were going to go FBI Roach. It reminds me of
definitely
of
McMahon. Skip
McMahon.
Skip.
Yeah, Roach is the director.
Yep.
Skip McMahon and in Term Limits, right? That's sort of the best McMahon novel we get, where he's at the crime scene where they have the helicopter. Yeah.
Yep. But no, I was thinking a little bit more in terms of the murder mystery. Put the clues together.
With Rivera in the
Agent Rivera, and how good she was at her job. Kind of a no nonsense agent who was moving up the ladder. I get that sense with Neville as well.
Yep. And it's complicated with that she has a past with Fournier, so
relationship. Yep.
But yeah, again, that detail, is it necessary? There's a lot of jam-packed details.
Yeah.
That don't pay off, Just they seem to be there to be there.
You mean the relationship with Fournier?
Yeah,
yeah, I agree with you.
He could just know.
I was gonna say the rope and stuff. I like those
details. No, that's essential, but just because they go into it a couple of different times. And
what if the energy around and the writing and the page space around that relationship was taken out? I would have loved to see one other character flourish. I already think there's too many characters going on. Vince does that a lot, but pulls it off, right? Readers don't often get lost in his works, even though there may be these third-party kind of characters floating about. Here, it's a little too much. But one of those characters, I think, deserved more time. De Fleury, the Monsignor, the priest,
yes,
who's secretly eavesdropping on this meeting.
That was
he's
cool.
thinking
His backstory was really cool.
His backstory was awesome, but he's thinking as the rector of the church, I'll let this intelligence guy use the building for meetings, and that's my way of giving back, right? To protecting the country, is letting the intelligence folks have secret meetings that no one will find out about because they're the basement of my church. But then when he listens to the conversation
in the confessional,
he goes, he takes the stairs, he goes to the confessional, and he knows there's this one confessional near, I guess, an air duct or something that you could listen into the conversations in the basement. So freaking awesome.
Well, and this guy was a G because, like, Vince even says that during World War II, right, all these Nazis that were Catholic, right, would come to him and give confessions, and he would be a good priest, hear the confessions, and then immediately turn around and sell those secrets.
He'd rat him out
to the resistance.
Yep.
That was awesome. That priest was a G. I would just love a whole book about that priest.
He is one of the.
Like, you could take that priest and make an entire book about, like, his life during World War II and stuff like that. That'd be sick.
You can have a whole series about him. Yeah.
Like Father Brown.
Yes. There's a couple of paragraphs of how he very quickly rationalized what he did.
Yes.
You know, both as a priest, but also needing to turn in the Nazis and then later the communists and now the jihadis. And that's his way of protecting the homeland and standing up for basically what's right.
He was a cool side character. Yeah.
Awesome character. He comes back in a really minor way in the second half.
Very minor.
I was hoping to get more. So.
Yeah.
Hey, Rapp's floating on the river though this whole time.
Yeah, I
He's
wanted to get to
dead.
that. I wanted to get to that. We get this pretty cool scene where, like, you know, he is able to escape, like, the shooting of him when he gets out of the window, and then he runs to the Seine and is sitting on this bridge, right? Because there's a bunch of bridges in Paris,
right?
And he uses this med kit, and just the description into this med kit, and as I'm reading it, I can see it, and how he's injecting each of the three things, and, you know, shoving gauze in, and then, you know, injecting the super glue, and then injecting like this, or, you know, I'm probably getting out of order, but I don't know. It was very good writing because I could just it fell off the page into my mind.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
No, I'm with you. While I was hoping for more detail on, like, Sacré-Cœur and the Sacred Heart Church.
Right, we got it with the medkit. We got it with the medkit.
Or the bridge, right? I'm hoping for more detail, like the bridges of Paris, so beautiful, and these river walkways and everything.
Yeah, there are locks really cool on it, right, that are going to make it fall off. But right.
But the detail was the powder going into this bullet wound and how it's coagulating the blood and then all this. And he even, I think, like, drops the wrappers into the river, knowing they'll get washed downstream and won't be evidence. Away.
Yeah.
So the details there, I guess I really like that too, but hoping you could balance the detail. But that was really awesome. Like, I wish we had someone who is a paramedic or trained in first aid, because I guess Vince got it right of how you patch up an emergency bullet wound.
Now they have this pretty cool stuff that it's these expanding, almost like Mentos. They're a little bit smaller than Mentos, right?
Jeez.
That they come inside. They're like half the size of a Mento, but they come inside a large syringe, and what you do is you shove that syringe into the bullet wound, shoot all these Mentos in. I'm calling them Mentos, but they're like antibiotic pods.
That's crazy.
That as soon as they hit liquid, they expand. Kind of like when you would, as a kid, you would take like the straw wrapper and like make it grow. Did you ever do that as a kid at like a restaurant or whatever?
No. What do you wet it and then?
Oh, like if you take this is geeky I am, I guess. You never took your straw wrapper, scrunched it up or folded it in half, and then you drop water on it, and then it kind of expands like a worm.
Okay, I can see that. I would usually peel off one end and then blow the straw wrapper at my brother.
You were one of those
That's what
guys.
I would do with it.
But anyways, like,
I wouldn't do the science experiment. I would try to piss somebody off for a joke, for a laugh.
Yeah, but these pellets, like, they expand when they hit water, and they have like antibiotics on them. They're pretty cool. But yeah, like back in the day, Mitch is using super glue.
Right. Which we're gonna assume Vince got right, like all the other details he's gotten right. He makes it. He shoots up that locker room. He's
he
"Oh,
like
this looks like a good
swims
place
2
to go."
miles, right?
Yeah, the river. Yeah.
And then goes in this locker room, like takes a hot shower,
Almost
gets
dies
some
of
candy
hypothermia.
bars. Yeah, almost dies.
He gets the candy bars from the
Like
vending machine.
the
you're
descriptions again, like you said, would have loved a better description of Sacré-Cœur or Paris in general, but we get a great description of this locker room.
right. Yeah.
Great description of this locker
And
room.
each lock that he shoots off,
Right.
like which one he takes the uniform from, which locker
Right.
he takes something else from, wants it just to look like a robbery. I mean, I guess it's all details about his escape, which
It is.
I do like seeing the aftermath.
In the moment,
how-
like I loved
did
it.
they
I was
get
thinking
away?
it.
Yeah.
But-
Yeah.
Yeah, so he gets away and then he has to deal with he's supposed to have a date after this hit, with Greta. And we get Greta coming back from American Assassin. What do you think about her appearance?
Yeah. This is your first phone call. He's not going to check in with Kennedy. He's not
No.
going to think about the bullet wound. It's like, oh shit, I'm supposed to meet Greta. I'm going to give her a buzz.
Because I got a bullet hole in my arm. I can't meet with you, honey. Like let's reschedule our cup of tea in the morning and because they were supposed to go to like Switzerland or something and ski.
Yeah. Though she picks up on it and ultimately, without much friction, is willing to come to Paris.
Yeah.
She understands his job.
Yeah, when she comes to Paris, like even though she puts like 2 and 2 together almost immediately after like addressing his wounds, she's like, "Wait, you were involved with Paris? Like what happened in Paris the other night?" He's like, "Yes," and she takes it pretty good. Like,
yeah,
Anna wouldn't have done that.
Oh no, not the DC
Anna
liberal news reporter.
Anna would not have acted like that. Yeah, even at the sight of a gun wound, I don't know if she would have, like, her first instinct would be to address the wound,
Greta's an Ohlmeyer. Come on now.
Yeah.
Those Ohlmeyers, they got some tough skin. They know what's going on. How cool would DeFleury, the priest, and Ohlmeyer meeting up and or having some history? Like,
That'd be sick.
all these little tangents I want to become fully fleshed stories.
It's headcanon. I love headcanon. It's awesome.
Absolutely. And imagine fan fiction. That would be kind of cool.
Yeah. We need some Mitch Rapp fan fiction.
That'd be awesome. I'd write the priest would be my character.
I'd write just a one-off story about like in between one of these marks of the list, a week with Greta. Like I want to flesh out Greta. I feel like that was going to be the third thing. We're gonna if you had to pick like the couple things to address in the third book, it's 1, Rafik.
Right.
It's 2, Victor, and how that concludes. And then 3, it's Greta. And like, where is she? Does she die? Does she betray Rapp?
Right.
Do they amicably, go are their separate ways?
Can you imagine if in some way that book or a later book addresses term limits? Even if it's just a name drop of like, or like
term
a
limits
newspaper.
happens in between kill shot and transfer of power, right? So like Rapp just picking up a newspaper.
Imagine him somewhere where he, because of whatever happened in that in between, he can't get involved. He does have to check himself and like stay off the grid, but he sees reports of the Speaker of the House assassinated.
Right.
Right.
Or Irene like sends him a message saying, I can't talk right now. Like, shit, I'm dealing with something with whatever, and you would know if you read the book like what she's dealing with, right?
Imagine she's like, I'm headed for a meeting on the Hill with the Speaker of the House, Bassett. I think that was his name. And then it's like, oh shit, that's the Speaker who's going to get hit. Like, is Kennedy there? Is she like on the way to the meeting? Or
yeah, that would be cool.
And then imagine somehow, like maybe Rapp is off somewhere and he can't get involved, like in Minnesota, and he happens to just be like checking out at like, I don't know, a fucking coffee shop, and some guy at the coffee shop is running for Congress and he's campaigning, and it's the O'Rourke character,
right?
Or just something random like that where they run into each other tangentially. I'd love it.
Or at the final scene could be that baseball game that he went to with Michael O'Rourke.
Yes, and that's where he meets Coleman. Yes,
right.
That could be like the epilogue.
That could be the epilogue, and setting everything up.
Oh my goodness.
See, like we just written like 2/3 of the book right here.
You're so right. Oh man, I got to come back to my priest though, because I love this guy.
Do it.
He could be in the book we've also talked about wanting Stan Hurley in Beirut or somewhere else. Iron Curtain with Stansfield and Kennedy's father. Like, what if De Fleury is like the priest that Kennedy's father, when he's ambassador, is going to confession with, and he's like a local priest at a church somewhere, whether it's Beirut or another posting. Like maybe Kennedy's father was posted.
It seems
elsewhere.
like this priest has been stationed at Sacré-Cœur for a long time, though.
Yeah. Well, come on. Kennedy's father could absolutely have involvement in Paris.
I could see if both of them are like stationed in France for a little bit and they go see this priest, that would be sick.
Right.
What I think is interesting is that every time I feel like we get mentioned Hurley in these novels, they mention like he's from the Far East or like some things about him in the Far East. I want to see, that's another thing, like Hurley's adventures in the Far East.
Yeah. Well, I think we should take all of the Hurley and Stansfield nuggets and do a pod on that.
Oh, it's coming. It's in the works, Mike.
Guys, that's coming. As
it's
these
probably going to be our
out.
July bonus pod,
right?
Where we after we finish this book,
because when we pick back up, Stansfield's dead. He died rather early on in the series. I think third option or executive power, or separation. Maybe separation power. It's
at the beginning of one of the two where we get the funeral.
So we'll have to do a tribute. And then Hurley, soon with The Last Man and Survivor.
Right. So.
All right, well, what do we need to wrap up here? I think maybe just how Victor, we get some backstory, and Stan Hurley are sent after Rapp. Stansfield does greenlight bringing him in. Rapp, as of now, is involved in this, I think, 9-person homicide in Paris.
Right.
And so Hurley and Victor gotta bring him in, whatever it takes, because right now he's a loose cannon that could set off some pretty bad international, a shitstorm. And Hurley and Victor are given basically the green light to bring him in, and if he refuses, take him.
Take him out. Yeah, so I guess just to address it, what they think, what Irene thinks, what Stansfield thinks, we get a couple different meetings with them and various people, but they think Rapp went rogue. Something happened. He killed a bunch of people, even though, and they mentioned Rob Ridley again, the advance team, who Stansfield said he's, there's no reason that Rob should have not missed the fact that this guy had bodyguards. Because in the papers, it's saying that these 4 people that got killed were bodyguards. But yeah, like they think Rapp fucked up, and then it's not until later that Rapp finally calls Irene after meeting with Greta, and obviously we learned about all of what happened. But he calls Irene because he thinks he can trust her, and she relays information to Stansfield, and Stansfield's like, oh shit, it was a setup, and then things start clicking in his head like, we have a leak. Mm-hmm. Who could it be? And then previously, just before that, we've had this other side plot, which kind of unnecessary, kind of, just talking about plots. There's like 7 different plots going on. Like we have 3, like normally it's like 1, 2, 3, like locations. Mm-hmm. In this, it's Rapp, it's Hurley, it's Stansfield and Irene, it's Fournier, it's
Neville, the police.
Neville, yeah, and then we have Cook, and the final one is Paul Cook and the Secretary
CIA
of State.
People.
Yes,
and the Secretary of State. Oh boy.
Yeah, we got a couple of scenes for him, and then this deputy director of the CIA, who the CIA directorship is currently vacant, is a lackey of the State Department and starts spying on Stansfield.
Yep.
So all this is culminated with, like you said, Victor and Hurley being sent over there, and then eventually, once Stansfield realizes that, maybe Rapp was set up, he sends Irene and Doc Lewis over there. But before we get to that, final chapter of this revelation that maybe maybe Rapp didn't do this. We get Victor's backstory. I just wanted to comment before we signed off here. What did you think of that?
Do you want to save that for next time? Because the second half of this book is almost a Victor story. Like, there's a lot of Victor.
Yeah.
What do you think? That's fine. I think we're hitting on almost an hour. What if we kick it off with that?
Yeah, that's good. I think that's a good. We'll start with the Victor backstory.
It's a good story.
That was a really cool chapter that we get.
Yeah. Though you know what happens when we get a backstory on a character. They gonna die.
Most likely they're gonna die.
That's so Flynn. Like,
but he doesn't die.
But he doesn't die. Thou shalt kill a character after creating a long backstory.
Yeah. No. So I guess just to wrap up here, like, who are your winners and losers of the first half?
Yeah, I think just to start negative, so I can end positive. I think a jumble of characters is a bit detracting or distracting from the story. The same way there's too many side plots and goings-on that aren't going to shape up in the second half to be that central to understanding the narrative and what's going on. So almost a case of doing a little too much. And here's a little theory about that. I could be completely off the mark and hope this isn't insensitive, but I just wonder if Vince had so many people he wanted to name drop personally, he needed a character named after them so he could just drop a bunch of names into this book.
Could be.
To write people in his life into the story. Totally just going off with that one. Who knows? But it was just so many characters coming at us. I couldn't keep up with it. But I think a big winner here, in terms of a good character that I would have liked more of, is Neville and the priest. And Rafik name drop. I think really small, subtle things are done so well. I just wanted more of them. So this balance of expanding upon maybe not the right things, at least in my mind as a reader, but the ones that were dropped for us, little hints of the priest in the confessional and his backstory, Neville being really good at her job, Law and Order style, put the pieces together to solve the crime. I really liked. So a lot of little details, a lot of little breadcrumbs. Some of them have big payoffs in the second half. I thought that was masterfully done.
Right. I agree with everything you said. I think my winner would have to be Greta. Like, I think she's Rapp's best partner. Because if we go through all of his partners, right? Anna, we don't have to go down that route. Like, Anna is flawed.
Fan. I'm a
Donatella is batshit fucking crazy, dude. She
Absolutely.
is crazy. She is crazy.
She's crazy. I like it.
Claudia tried to killed Rapp's wife and unborn child. So, Greta's my winner. Greta is my winner. Greta's my winner.
I'll give it to you.
She's gorgeous.
Absolutely.
She doesn't give Rapp shit for being potentially involved in 9 homicides. She takes care of him. She has a grandfather who's very smart and wealthy. She knows how to ski. I'm a Greta fan. I'm really. It's really unfortunate we didn't get to see the conclusion of the Greta story.
You like that accent, don't you?
Not even like a mention of Greta in later books. Come on, Kyle.
That's true.
Kyle, if you've listened to this end of the episode, please wrap up the Greta story at least.
He wants to. He brought Greta up to us a few times when we spoke.
I know he did.
But I remember him saying, "What about Greta?" And throwing
yeah,
his
I do
hands
remember
up.
that. I do remember that. That's funny. But all right,
yeah,
well, that was a good
I'm
pod.
with you. She was great. Yeah, good pod. I feel like this one we analyzed the story and the themes a bit deeper, as opposed to just recapturing the plot. So well done. Good themes you pulled out there, Chris.
Thank you, sir. And next time, we will be wrapping up Kill Shot Part 2, giving you our ratings, and of course, our cover discussion, which you didn't mention this, Mike, but Vince makes a tribute to a dedication to Janine Lee for another great cover.
For the cover, yes. This is going to be a good one to talk about.
I like Janine Lee, because this is a pretty cool cover. Because it doesn't have that many, but the one with the Eiffel Tower is a pretty cool cover.
Janine Lee definitely did not have a say on cover C. I can tell you that much.
I really hope so, because if not, I'm not gonna like. I don't like Janine Lee, but just if Vince is dedicating it to her, then she didn't have a hand in cover C.
That's kind of cool. A dedication to a cover artist. That's fly. I like that.
That is cool. Like you finally like shouting someone out. That's cool.
I like it.
All right, we have to thank our patrons, including our special operator Sherry F., our special agents George, Matt, Dawn, Dennis, Peggy, Catherine, Ray, Bridget, Jeff, and Mark. Please subscribe, rate, and review using your favorite podcasting platform. 5 stars on Apple Podcast. You can find us online at MitchRappPod.com or using our Twitter or Instagram, which hasn't been active for a while, but I'm going to get back on that this week, at MitchRappPod. And as always, just let Mitch be Mitch.
We made it a whole hour, and you did not electrocute yourself.
Well done. I didn't die. That's good. Should be. Is that the goal of every podcast? Not to die? Hi guys, I'm Chris.
And I'm Mike.
And welcome back to this week's No Limits, a Mitch Rapp Podcast. How you doing this week, Mike?
I'm doing good. It's nice to catch up with you and play some golf. What day was that?
Sunday.
Sunday we did that? Yep. That was awesome. That was fun.
I picked your ass up. We went golfing near my parents' house. It was fun. We even recorded a nice little podcast, the two of us, recounting our Chris and Mike's Tales from the Golf Course. I think that's our new series. We have the author series. Now we have the Tales from the Golf Course series.
Don't forget Rap on Rap, our patron-only series.
And Rap on Rap.
So, are you serious? Should I take that recording from the golf course and put it on our feed, or should I make it a Rap on Rap? What do you think?
I think you could do like a mini version on our feed, and then do the full version for the patrons only. You know, the OnlyFans.
Either
OnlyFans get a little bit extra.
a little extra, huh?
We should start a Mitch Rapp OnlyFans. Be just pictures of Dylan O'Brien, you know.
Though you remind me. Speaking of different online platforms.
Well, I don't know where you're going with that one.
Well, let's transition here. There is a Reddit giveaway. So if you were not fortunate enough to win a copy of Enemy at the Gates through the Mitch Rapp Ambassador Program, we were authorized to give away one copy to a podcast listener. And we are going to choose that listener through the Mitch Rapp subreddit, which is a discussion board and community forum about basically any topic. Well, we run the Mitch Rapp subreddit. So head on to reddit.com, search up Mitch Rapp. If you post on the page, we will enter your name. Next week, we'll be picking the winner of an advanced copy of Enemy at the Gates.
Yes, and we have our own copies. We can't be ambassadors because we're technically media. We're media. Media in quotation marks, but it's good to have that copy. I've already started to dig in. It's no spoilers here, but I'm enjoying it so far.
Yeah, and I'll reiterate as well, we will absolutely not spoil that book. We may talk about it, we may discuss what's going on in the world of rap fandom, but we won't spoil the book or the plot here on the podcast. So you are good until September 14th, mid-late September, when we drop our Enemy at the Gates podcasts.
Yes, but be on the lookout. We're going to do some road to, just like we did Road to Total Power, we're going to do some Road to Enemy at the Gates. I'm going to recap what happened last year and speculate on what's going on. I think we're going to record those soon before we actually read the book, so we don't get any sort of biases going on here.
Right.
But, just talk about what we know from
Total Power
what's been released, and also and from Total Power, of course. So, and talk about the cover, because you've sort of gone on about this cover, how much you like it.
I do.
I
really do.
It's definitely top 5.
Yeah. So. I think we'll have to just kind of revisit Total Power. And I don't think Kyle was necessarily as strong as Vince in tying books together and having, sprinkling breadcrumbs about what's to come. I think Vince really pulled that off, and it was an inherent part of his craft. I think Kyle a little less so, not in a negative way at all. I just it's less his style, I think, to link the books together. But we'll see what we can dig up from Total Power, and if there are any kind of missing links that we think will be followed up upon.
But that could be different, because he did mention that this next trilogy was going to be a 3-book arc.
True.
So we might be heading into book 1 of something that is going to affect, the plot's going to affect the next 3 books. So
I sense something big. I am not basing that on anything.
I sense something huge too.
I haven't read anything, right? Something big's coming. I really believe that. I think something with Rapp
I just have
personally.
a huge feeling about that.
Yep.
So we'll see. We will see.
We'll see. We shall see. Some of you guys listening already know.
Yeah.
The ambassadors among us. All right. Well, that takes us to today's podcast, picking up from last week with Kill Shot Part 2. And Chris, do you know what I like to do every time I read a good book?
No, I don't, Mike. What do you
I
like
like to review that book in the form of a limerick. Funny story about this limerick.
Give it to me.
This was concocted in about the 2 minutes before we started podcasting.
Yeah, so disclaimer warning, we were originally supposed to record a different podcast tonight, but we decided to switch it up, and now we're recording our part 2. We had the notes, obviously. No, we're not like doing this off the dome, but we didn't have the limerick, so... Or, well, I say we, like I helped you at all. Your limerick, you didn't have your limerick, so you did it off the dome, and I have to say it's pretty good. So
yeah, I think I came up with this thing just off the cuff, so this is the closest you'll get to, a free verse, or what do you call it, freestyle limerick.
Spoken word.
Here we go. A book dominated by little action. Only 2 scenes that really gain traction. Plot lines get twisted, and characters get mixed in. What will happen to Rapp and Greta's attraction?
Yeah, that really sums up like the second half of this book, where we have a lot of these plot lines that are very left unattended to, and that it's crying for a third novel. Crying.
I think we're going to pick up there naturally in our discussion today from last week. Last week, we had a bunch of loose ends that we see as an opportunity, that a third book in the trilogy or more, right? It could have been more than a third. Who knows what Vince would have done. But whatever that hinge is between Kill Shot and Transfer of Power, when we come back to a mature, seasoned Mitch Rapp, I think we have a few more little hints here of what goes on in that in-between time. So I think that'll be a theme today.
Yeah, definitely. The theme today is loose ends, and I think we're going to spend the bulk of our time first sort of talking about the 2 scenes that sort of dominate the second half of this novel, and then finally, like, just wrapping up with discussing, speculating what Vince could want to have done with, where our characters are left off after this novel. So we left off last time by talking about, we purposely didn't talk about the backstory of Victor, Chet Bramble. We get a nice chapter in the first half that discusses him and his background, and he seems to be the main, would you say the main focus, besides Rapp and his, like, trying to clear his name? Like, Victor is the main focus, or the main plot character of the second half of this novel, right?
Right. I think the same way American Assassin in some ways was a Stan Hurley story as a secondary character to Mitch, I think this book, Kill Shot, is a Chet Bramble story, Victor's real name, secondary to Mitch. And because of that, Vince wants to flesh out his backstory. And Chris, you might have remembered the details better than me, but kind of a rough around the edges as a kid, like to get himself in trouble, quick to anger, I would say.
Quick to anger. He has a soft spot. His brother is disabled, or obviously has something wrong with him, and he obviously is very protective of him. So Vince adds that sort of element of, kindness, I guess. But then he quickly sort of follows that up by saying when he attacks like the first kid that makes fun of his brother, Victor says he enjoyed that. It's not just like, Mitch sort of standing up for somebody, like, because Mitch, I think, is it Mitch that stands up for his little brother? Yeah, Mitch stands up for Steven.
Yep, on the baseball
It's almost
field.
like
remember that story?
Very similar. They both have similar like stories, but where Mitch is not vindictive or doesn't take pleasure in beating up these other kids, Victor does,
Right.
And, he's being put through all these things. He gets picked up as like, oh, let's channel that anger into wrestling. And then his father's like, well, if you're not going to, go to college, then you're going to go in the military. You're going to do something. So puts him in the military. He excels in the military. I think he's in Delta Force, right?
Right.
And gets kicked out of Delta Force because he goes to a bar and picks on the wrong colonel who knows like how to counteract. I think the guy says he's some sort of martial arts. Gets him himself locked in the stockade and is about to go to prison, but this guy knows his CO, and the CO knows Stan Hurley, who is looking for, a character like this to undergo some things. And it's interesting that later on in the novel, Vince has Stansfield a couple different times say that, the CIA is not for the Boy Scouts. The Orion team is not for the Boy Scouts, right? That's the FBI. We need people people that have, questionable morals, but not as questionable as Victor. Like he's the extreme. It's like finding that fine line of someone who's willing to break the rules,
right,
but not completely obliterate the rules.
That's perfectly said. And that's why like Doc Lewis comes in and you get the sense that Doc Lewis was never completely on board with Victor being Hurley's top recruit, but Hurley had so much sway and Hurley's history with Stansfield. Hurley was going to get his guy, who he saved, right? Chet is sitting about to go into a prison cell, probably going to be court-martialed for this incident at the bar. And Hurley basically is his savior. And so Hurley has him like a dog, on a leash, responding to his every whim. He quite literally saved this guy's life by getting him out of a very long sentence. But Doc Lewis is kind of uncomfortable with that. And by the end of this book, Doc Lewis is going to go so far as to tell Stansfield, we got to eliminate Victor.
Yeah, like that was kind of crazy. He's like, Stansfield even like recalls Doc Lewis hadn't said those words in a long time. His recommendation,
right?
And he said this is the Green Beret coming out in him,
right?
To his duty. He saw that this guy needed to be eliminated, and I think it also shows that. And I think Fournier sort of echoes this in one of the chapters where he mentions that the fact that he's able to get all this information shows that Stan and Thomas are slipping. I think that Hurley thinking that he can control. Sometimes I get confused with Stan and Stansfield and Hurley and Tom. Sorry.
Right.
So, but the fact that Stan Hurley is slipping a little bit, getting older, because he thinks he can control Victor. He thinks like, he's seen this person before. He knows what he's capable of. He knows he can control him, but he can't. He really can't.
Yeah. And you mentioned the psychology, so he thinks he can control him, but listen to this quote about who Victor or Chet Bramble really is. And we're going to get to the action scene here in a minute, but just listen to this as the aftermath of this scene that involves Victor. Vince writes, quote, Bramble did what he did often in the aftermath of a near-death experience. He began to laugh. Not a giggle or a chuckle, but a belly-splitting roar, a release of tension and an absolute euphoric embrace of victory. He was the king of the hill, the last man standing, a man among children. 5 bullets, 5 bodies. Shit, Bramble said. They should write a song about me. Like, that's no good.
No,
Hurley might think he has him on a leash, but a guy who's like that when he's in the field, you know that leash is going to be torn off, and this guy's going to go buck wild eventually.
Yeah, and I guess we can just get right into the scene, right? Picking up from when we left off, like Rapp is setting up this whole. He's contacted Irene. Irene says, don't go to the safe house because she knows Victor's watching it, right? Stands over there, whatever. Be safe. I'm coming to get you. But Rapp is thinking, all right, someone has turned on me. There's a leak somewhere. I'm going to set up a plan where I'm going to send someone in to the safe house and see how they react.
A decoy.
And he's not thinking that they're going to kill him. He's thinking that they're going to, he wants to see if they're going to take him down harshly to interrogate him or take him down softly to interrogate him, But I think what Vince really shows is the duality between these two characters, how they're both have very similar skills in the sense of being top-notch assassins, but Victor is just Rapp is so light years ahead of Chet or Victor, whatever you want to call him, intellectually, because there's this whole inner monologue where Victor is talking about why he doesn't understand why Irene is involved, and like the relationship between Irene and Hurley, and why they like each other, and the relationship between Stansfield and Hurley and Stansfield and Irene, and he's so dense that he can't figure out why they're intertwined when Rapp knows he's deduced or done the actual work figuring out that Irene's father was friends with them and that they were all in Beirut and obviously a big incident happened and Irene is essentially the niece of both these two characters. To Chet, that never even crosses his mind. He just thinks that she's this annoying girl who's involved and doesn't need to be there. He just brushes her off. When you think about it, she's going to become to be one of the most intellectual characters, like my favorite character actually going forward in this entire series. Right.
She can replace Stansfield. That's huge. It's
huge, and she's an awesome CIA director. Obviously has her flaws.
Chet doesn't.
He's blinded by everything.
He thinks he can actually drive a wedge between Hurley and Kennedy. And he thinks if push comes to shove with decisions at Langley, by having Hurley in his corner, he'll be all good. No. Rapp never for a minute thinks he needs Hurley in his corner. He hates the guy. But he does think, when I can trust her, I need Irene in my corner, and I need that mysterious guy who's pulling the strings, Stansfield, in my corner. Where Chet Bramble doesn't give a fuck about any of them, and actually sells out and becomes a traitor by trying to take down Stansfield and Kennedy. I mean, I don't know if you want to get into that, but let's stick to this.
There's something I want to touch on about that later, because I don't think again, Vince doesn't show that he's intellectual enough to actually. It's not fitting of his character to actually do that in the future. But anyways, yeah, and he even says Stansfield needs to retire and Hurley needs to replace him. We need more people like Hurley being in charge. When in Rapp's mind, it's complete opposite. I don't know. I just really enjoy the duality of these two characters they're similar, yet at their core they're different. And Vince picks it apart and shows it to us in various cases. And you mentioned that laughing, right? He kills this. He ends up killing this fake Rapp, which Rapp is very shook when this happened. He realizes that he sent an innocent man or someone in. This guy's a drug dealer, so he feels guilty for it.
Yeah,
but Victor is so stupid that he doesn't even go and ID the guy that he just popped in the head. He just assumed that this is Rapp going into the safe house and shoots him in the back of the head, and then starts laughing ha ha ha, I got Rapp. Doesn't even bother to turn over their body and see that this is not Rapp.
Yeah, he's even dragging him into the van or something and doesn't. Yeah,
and then he immediately switches to all right, how do I cover this up? Oh, and now I'm going to kill these.
Oh, he kills the two cops. Was it cops?
First, he kills the two the other Delta people,
the DGSE,
and then he kills
guys.
the DGSE people. Yep.
Yeah. So he's got 5 dead bodies. in the middle of a neighborhood in Paris. And then he kills his 2 partners. You're right. His 2 partners are questioning him because Hurley just gave the stand down order. Thankfully, Irene, Stansfield, and Lewis came to the conclusion that Rapp probably hasn't turned, that they can still bring Rapp in amicably. And so they do convince Hurley to shut down the operation to eliminate or chase Rapp. Hurley contemplates for a little bit, does give the order. So Hurley did follow the wishes of Kennedy. But Victor goes off reservation. Even he denies orders from Hurley. And the funny thing is, the whole time he's thinking, oh, I could just make up a story. Like, he thinks he's such a good liar. He can think of every scenario where he can have a watertight story of why, he killed this guy. Rapp tried to shoot him. Rapp killed his 2 partners. These 2 random agents came onto scene. Rapp killed them also, but I was the hero who survived and was able to eliminate Rapp. And what a bogus story. Like, the forensics, the analysis, and knowing lurking in the background is this Neville character, this really competent police lieutenant or commander. She's going to put the pieces together. Anybody with half a brain is going to put the pieces together at this crime scene. But Victor just peels out thinking, he's a G. Well, Rapp does chase him, but Rapp gets a couple of shots off at him, but he, by and large, gets away unharmed.
Yeah, and it's after this scene, it's sort of the mission is to figure out from Stansfield and Hurley and Irene's side did Rapp kill these people? Is Victor lying or is he lying? And the thing that saves him, right, is the fact that he treats the one DGSE agent and those reporters, which came back for a chapter. It's interesting. You mentioned in this last pod, these extra characters, even Neville, if you think about her, she's being played up to be like this important character in the first half of the book with doing these investigations. And then like her last chapter is just doing that press conference where she says that Fournier is setting her up. And then we get no resolution with her again. And then, like those 2 reporters who Hurley has on his retainer, like they're just there and witnesses. And that's what helps corroborate Rapp's story and shows in Stansfield's mind that Rapp is a good guy and on their side. I don't know, like there's a lot of different plot elements that don't really get wrapped up in this, pardon my pun, that don't get fulfilled in the second half of the book. And then there's even more glaring plot holes that, we're going to talk about those in probably at the end of this podcast that are just blatantly left open because they are supposed to be completed in the next novel or next couple novels, right?
Yeah, but there's one other piece of evidence while we're at the crime scene is that Greta watched the whole thing. Right. And in Stansfield's mind, being so close to the Ohlmeyer family, Greta's a very trustworthy source, right? Like her observations of this whole event and knowing what Rapp did to try to, stem the bleeding, quite literally patching up this agent in the street, trying to get Victor. Greta corroborates that as well, and that's going to be a clinching piece of evidence for Stansfield that Rapp is innocent and actually the good guy here.
Yeah, what did you think of that whole scene where like Rapp leads them on this like? I thought it was personally like one of my favorite chapters where Rapp is. They take he only wants Irene again. Just playing from like these movies I've seen, specifically like the Bourne Identity or the Bourne Supremacy, whatever. He's leading them to the city. He's watching them. He leads them to the apartment that he was watching Victor's thing, and then they're like there, and he's talking to them on the phone, and then he sneaks in, and then I can just see that in a movie where they're there, they're listening on the phone. He like sneaks in behind them, and then like finally like his next phrase is not on the phone, but like right behind them, and they turn around and he's there with a gun. Like that's fucking awesome. That was awesome.
That was really cool. It would work better as a movie. It was pretty cool. But the whole time I asked myself, this whole thing just went down, and he literally tells them to meet at the apartment building right where all the blood is from this decoy guy Luke getting his head busted open.
Wouldn't there be like cops still there?
Even if there'd be cops, there'd be a huge crime scene. There'd be the French version of the FBI or whatever, and also Stansfield and Kennedy would know not to be caught dead somewhere like that. A reporter, someone who recognizes any of them, or just trying to get into this apartment building where the crime just happened, like
across the street from where the crime just happened. Like they'd be spotted. They'd be spotted though, because the whole thing is that they're trying not to be spotted by the GGSE, and this huge crime scene where at one point Victor breaks out a submachine gun. So there's bullet like shell casings everywhere. This is within hours. It's not within days. It'd be one thing if it was days,
Right. It's that day. There'd be a huge perimeter. Yeah. Kennedy wouldn't want to be caught dead there, or Stansfield, or Rapp.
No, I didn't think about that. You're right. You're right.
Yeah, that one just threw me for a loop, if I'm going to be honest. All right, well, let's get into what caused this whole shindig in the first place, because there's Cook.
Yes.
You remember his first name? He's
Paul.
that insignificant a character. I don't even know.
Paul Cook.
Paul Cook. So Paul Cook works at the CIA.
Is the deputy director.
Right. Deputy director is disheartened
He wants to be the director.
Yeah, by what Stansfield's doing, and there's an opening in the directorship. Well, they know it's going to come down to either Stansfield and his team, or Paul Cook and his team as the deputy director. And it seems Paul Cook is a little nervous that Stansfield is going to get the nod. Well, the Secretary of State summons Paul Cook, wants to use his sway to have a guy in the agency to get the upper hand and play hardball with intelligence. And who knows, maybe that's looking at a run towards president one day, right? Like angling to get his people in the right position to advocate for him. I'm not saying the CIA influences elections, but he'd at least have his people in the right places. Let's put it that way. And so he kind of meets up with him, and the Secretary of State says, "Can you get rid of Stansfield for me? You'll be my guy." And Cook says, "I'll do it." What do you think is the link between Paul Cook and Victor? Because the way Paul Cook gets influence and what brings him into the French storyline is that he has Stansfield's hit list. He knows Stansfield is running a secret team, the Orion team, and they have a list of people that they're picking off, that they're assassinating. And if that shit goes public, Stansfield's career is over, right? That's an assassination program run by the United States government. So Paul Cook and the Secretary of State ready to blow it up. What do you think about that whole storyline?
Well, what I'm taking is there's a couple things that are not said on the actual page, because it definitely seems that Paul Cook was setting this up before his meeting with the Secretary of State. So he had these ambitions, knowing that the directorship was empty. He reaches out to us. Essentially, Fournier seems to be like his equivalent, or Stansfield equivalent. I guess the same level in the GGSE, and he's starting to align various groups with himself across the world. Meanwhile, he knows that, all right, Stansfield has set up this team. Let me try to take out the leader of this team. I wonder at what point he finds out that Rapp is, because he obviously knows at the very end, we find out that he's going to give over this information, but he doesn't give over that information in the beginning, because the assassins don't know it. So does he not know it? Does he not know it, or does he purposely not tell them? That's my question.
Well,
when does he find out that Rapp is in charge of the Orion team?
So Victor is the one feeding the information to Paul Cook.
Right.
Maybe Victor doesn't even know. He knows Rapp, right, because he broke his arm at the farm, but maybe Victor doesn't know that he's the one. He's like the tip of the spear.
Right.
For these assassinations.
Until he has to go get him.
Until he gets called in. Right. Until Hurley and Victor are sent to Paris to track Rapp. That's when Victor finds out that Rapp was the one leading the Orion team and, doing the assassinations, that he then passes that on. He kind of passes on to Cook. Hey, I'm being sent to Paris. It's Rapp. We're tracking him. Here's the intel. But
my problem with that whole side of the story, right, is that, okay, it's fine if Cook is this. Vince is sort of showing him as the seedy politician, right? It's not Victor's MO to reach out to Paul Cook. There needed to be some sort of explanation between how they met up, why he's talking to Paul Cook, why he leaked these secrets, because Victor just seems like the kind of guy that wants to kill people, like that he would have no problem with this hit list. Right. So why is he telling Cook? Unless because he truly doesn't want to get rid of Stansfield, but in the chapters where we're in his mind, he never says that. He says that he should be replaced, but not like that directly. You know what I mean?
You're so right. So there needs to be a scene. I wish you cut out there's 15 to 20% of this book I think could have and should have been cut out.
Yeah.
Like Hurley at one point meets with the executive producer of Le Mans.
Yeah. And like his fling from a long time ago.
Like it's kind of crazy.
Throwaway chapter. It's a throwaway chapter.
Right. Of course Hurley has a relationship with her. I'm not surprised by that, but why are they meeting? And then these two other journalists that Hurley's meeting with, kind of cool, maybe. But what if you replace that with Cook approaching Victor and saying, we read the reports of this guy breaking your arm, this guy Rapp. We read the reports of Hurley aging. We know he's been your mentor, but you gotta understand as well that he's on his way out the door. We want to promote you, Victor.
Right.
What if Paul Cook says, I will make you the next Hurley. You get to run a team of assassins that you pick. I feel like Victor would be like, oh, hell yeah, I get to pick some buddy assassins to go off and kill more people and greenlight more of my missions to assassinate people. I feel like Paul Cook must have dangled, you could be my Hurley. I'll be the Stansfield to your Hurley.
Yeah, because it seems like Cook is trying to turn other people like Fournier.
Yeah,
I want to see him turning Victor,
working him.
I want to see him trying to be a Stansfield, but he never can be.
Right.
That would make the final scene where Rapp kills him all the more better.
Yeah, that's a missing opportunity. There's so much here that we're spitballing as conjecture. We wish we saw. There could have been. And those maybe were opportunities for the third book. Some that could have been taken in this book, but I think it weakens the integrity of how Killshot holds together, how the storyline holds up in the end, which I think I rarely say about Vince's books, that most of the storylines tie together.
This is probably the worst book in terms of, because no other book have we conjectured this much about scenes and what we wanted to see. Maybe here or there, but there's a lot here. There's a lot here.
All right, and plot holes. We might find one minor thing, one storyline that doesn't check out. I feel like here it's just kind of compounding or snowballing. And we'll get to ratings soon, but you mentioned one kind of final action scene. There wasn't really any other action besides Victor's killing of these five innocent people, until we get to the very end.
Yeah.
Which it's kind of where it's all attempting to come together. So Fournier is kind of pissed off. He's the French intelligence officer who's trying to kind of clear the air and get rid of this mess because it's really affecting, because he's involved, right? He's in bed with Max and Samir, who are the terrorists. So Fournier is kind of upset that the police chief, this lady, is gathering evidence that seems to point to his interference with the investigation. And, now we're up to 14 murders pretty much in the span of a few days in Paris. One of them, a Libyan oil minister. This is a public story. And so Fournier wants
a DGSE agent.
And now an agent, right, exactly. Fournier wants to get control of this. Neville is not basically playing along because she wants the truth. He basically threatens her and says, she's a stalker. She's in love with me. She's a jealous ex. Gets a restraining order against her and basically tries to, in the public arena, shame her, to discredit her. And so anything she ends up uncovering won't matter, won't see the light of day, and she can't continue the investigation. Kind of another side plot?
Kind of, yeah. And that's what I said earlier, how this, she sort of her story wraps up by her doing this press conference, airing all that out, and then we never, we just, the next time we see Fournier is he's with Cook, committing treason, and Ridley has now rigged there was also when did Stansfield tell Ridley to bug this room?
Yeah.
He told him to sweep it, in terms of because he's obviously the deputy director is coming over. We need to make sure no one else is listening in, but we also want us to listen in.
Yeah.
I guess we should have known that based on the chapter between Stansfield and Cook, where Stansfield says this guy is a pawn of the
right
Secretary of State, so I can't trust him. So
that leaves a lot of work, though, to us, the reader, to have to kind of figure that out on the fly.
I agree that there's a lot in that last chapter that we have to sort of put together in our mind,
right?
Of how this all came together, and then boom, we get Rapp just walking in, killing everybody, except for a key player, which one of the plot points that we're gonna talk about right now or in the next second, and then making it look like they turned on each other.
Right. But he finds a dossier in this hotel room that Cook was passing to Max Vega, who's funding the terrorism,
who was on the
Samir,
list,
and Fournier, who's the intelligence officer. Yeah, Vega's the next one on the list. That's how Rapp identifies the guy's oh shit, this was next on my list. And the dossier is about him. It's his photo, it's his story. And basically, he was going to be the next target for the terrorists. And so Rapp says, if I don't kill these guys here and now, I'm dead meat because they're coming after me anyway. So I better kill them now. Kind of cool that he knows the room is bugged. He doesn't want anybody to know he was there and was responsible for these killings. He wants it to look like they turned. He doesn't make a sound. And I think he even chooses not to use a weapon that they can identify. He has a different weapon.
He puts one of the weapons in one hand, grabs another weapon, shoots that weapon. So they'll see multiple weapons being fired in each other's hands. It's kind of cool how he just sets it up on the fly.
I think he took one of those off the bodyguard. I think that was it. He took the bodyguard's weapon, made it look like he shot one. Yeah.
So, yeah, and then he finds his other dossier in Cook's jacket that was of Hurley, so he was going to sell Hurley out too. Yeah, this Paul Cook guy, not a good guy, not a good guy at all.
Yeah. Well, here's kind of the payoff when we learn what the third man in the terrorist party was doing. He was the escape route. There was a guy prepping a plane as soon as Max Vega and Samir and Fournier wrapped up this meeting. They were going to get out of Dodge. And Rafik had the plane ready to go.
Conveniently.
And Rafik was not at this meeting.
Yes. And so I guess let's just jump right into our plot holes that need to be wrapped up.
Or loose ends. Let's go back to loose ends.
The biggest one, I think, is Rafik. And, so Rafik is dropped once in the meeting at the Sacre-Cœur and then again here.
Now.
Where he's the only guy not at this meeting, not killed by Rapp. He's obviously now going to be super pissed off that Rapp killed Samir and killed Vega.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't, in my mind, for some reason, I thought we got a scene with Rafik and Mitch in one of these two novels. And we got the scene where he gives Mitch his scar, because this is something that's brought up in Transfer of Power, brought up in other novels, It doesn't happen. I guess it was fan fiction in my mind that I was recalling. Yeah, I think that was probably going to be the plot of the third novel, was this whole Rafik and Rapp trying to come at each other. What do you think that was going to be like, Mike?
All right. So you and I, before we started recording, were kind of thinking ahead of what this story could look like. And we had some pretty cool ideas. I like this one. So Rafik is waiting at the airport for his friends to jump ship and get out. And when they don't come, Rafik's waiting an hour, 2 hours. I think there had to be some emergency protocol that these guys were using, whereby Rafik either leaves without them and wants to investigate what happened, but more likely that before he goes, the protocols had some sort of Dropbox or some meeting place. And maybe Paul Cook and Fournier left an extra copy of those dossiers. So somehow Rafik finds out Rapp and Hurley were the guys responsible for this killing.
Right.
And that is happening at the same time where Rapp somehow gets intel that there was a third guy who wasn't present at this meeting, who was also responsible for these killings, and knows he's on the loose. So I think somehow they each get intel that the other was responsible, and it becomes a cat and mouse game. I would love a book, kind of like what Kyle does with Grisha Azarov way later in the series.
Right.
A cat and mouse, Rapp versus these, and they're both kind of looking for each other, and they both know they're looking for each other.
And at some point we get a scene where Rafik gives him a scar, you know?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, no, that's definitely, it seems to be like what Vince is trying to set up here, and
yeah.
I really wish we got to see something like that.
How about this one? Greta.
Because that's the other big plot hole.
Because in the last scene, Rapp basically knows Stansfield's never going to let Rapp see Greta again. Like, he's going to call Herr Ohlmeyer, and like, that's not going down. But here's what Rapp says, quote, "His thoughts turned to Greta. Stansfield would take care of her, and he would also do his best to make sure that Rapp never saw her again. But Rapp knew he would have to risk seeing her just one more time. He would never forgive himself if he didn't."
So I guess that's, you know, people who are wondering where Greta is and why she's not in future novels. Like, I guess that could be explained away in terms of, in the next novel, maybe Rapp only sees her one time and says goodbye, and then that's it. Or she dies.
He doesn't.
Or he doesn't. Or purposely doesn't. Or what I would like is the book starts off with him just watching her, like somewhere from afar, seeing what she's doing, but he never makes contact with her. And there's some sort of internal monologue where he's like, I can't, I just have to let it be. And then he just goes away. You know, he goes off trying to find Aziz. Like, I would like some sort of closure there.
I'm so with you. I was just thinking, what if Stansfield and Ohlmeyer are concocting ways, the entire book, they're coming up with ways to get Rapp to stay away from Greta. Like, it's working, Rapp doesn't have time, Rapp can't meet up with her, there's fights about it, but Ohlmeyer and Stansfield are doing everything they can to keep Rapp distance from Greta, for her sake. And Rapp doesn't want an ounce of it. Rapp fights it, Rapp does whatever he can, he vows to see Greta one last time, and finally he has the opportunity. Like, let's say he's looking at her on a train platform, the train pulls up, doors open, she boards, and Rapp's about to board too and make this his final chance to say goodbye, and something clicks and he says,
"Can't.
I trust Thomas. I trust Ohlmeyer. Maybe they were right this whole time." And Rapp kind of, instead of fighting the tide, he just gets swept away with the ocean and just lets the train doors close and watches Greta leave and vows to himself, I'm never going to put her in danger again. And the only way I can do that is 100% cutting her off. I don't exist to her anymore.
I would like that, and I felt like that would give us good closure with her. Instead of like her dying or some sort of stupid cliche or him like saying goodbye, something like that.
And you know, like the inner monologue can couch it in like, this is Rapp's final step on the training that Stansfield is trying to pass on to him.
Right. Like
Rapp's final jump into, I'm giving up my personal life. Because in Kill Shot and American Assassin,
it's all about that.
Rapp plays along with Kennedy and Stansfield and says like, yeah, a couple of times. But secretly he has his own personal life. He sleeps with Greta, right? He holds back something from Kennedy on the car ride to the farm. Like, he's holding back from them. This is his truly, I'm done trying to play both worlds. I'm 100% committed down this path, and it sucks for me, and I'm never going to have a normal relationship ever again. But this is the moment where he says, like, I'm sacrificing myself for my job.
Right. No, I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
And one other thing with Rafik, there's this 2 times where Stephen Rapp is brought up, and I just think that maybe he plays a role in the next book where maybe Rafik like kidnaps him or something, you know?
Yep.
There's two
I even have the quote.
Purposeful name drops of Stephen Rapp that just seem out of place.
Right. So it was early on in the book. We're getting like a psychological profile of Rapp. And it says, quote, his existence had become a lie within a lie. His own brother had not a clue what he was up to, nor did any of his friends. Over the last several years, he had distanced himself from all of them. The kid who had grown up in Virginia, played lacrosse for Syracuse, was gone, replaced by a killer. There was no melancholy or regrets. He was on a path he had chosen. So Vince deliberately wrote that he cut out his brother. That was part of his,
Right.
his sacrifice. And then at the end, so that was the beginning of the book. Then the end of the book, Paul Cook passes on to the terrorists, quote, Rapp, he has a mother who is terminally ill, but he has a brother who could be used as leverage.
Right.
Like it's a throwaway line. He has a brother who could be used as leverage. That had to be part of the next storyline.
It had to be. It set it up perfectly.
Like how is Rafik going to go on his own and get to Rapp? Rafik's got no leverage. He's not even that high up of a guy in the hierarchy. He just lost Max Vega, who was the financier, so Rafik is short on resources. He's going to have to get desperate and use whatever angle he can, and that might just be a family member.
Right. And I think the final loose end is Victor. I think Victor has to come back in the third novel somehow. He's obviously, super paralyzed or super, pissed off.
Shot how many times?
Once in the leg, once in the elbow, twice in the balls.
In the balls, yeah.
So I feel like there has to be some sort of, Rapp thinks he's gone, but he gets out somehow, and has a vengeance for Rapp somehow.
I don't know. I read that when Rapp goes into the room and I think he promised Doc Lewis he won't kill Victor.
He wouldn't kill him.
But he shoots him like 8 times, and then he walks out and leaves the mess to Hurley. He goes, here, Hurley, this is your guy, your mess. I see that as Victor's done. But you're right, it's like a movie. If you don't see them die on screen,
right,
you never know if they're dead.
Then they're set up to come back. I don't know, just for me, it felt like he purposely didn't kill Rapp. Rapp didn't kill Victor because he wanted to bring him back. I don't know, but maybe not.
I don't think the way I see it is Victor's done. He's shot up enough, right? I think he's just going to bleed out, or Hurley's going to put the finishing touches on him, because we got a huge backstory. And like I said last time,
right?
It's the Book of Flynn. It's Flynn Commandment number 4. If you get a backstory, you're killing the character. So I think Victor's done. I don't think he had a role beyond, but I could be wrong.
Could be.
Kyle can prove me wrong.
Yeah. We need that book, Kyle. We need it.
Hey, so we covered a lot of ground, a lot of territory, but we did not give our final ratings or discuss the covers. So let's wrap up with that.
All right.
Give us your ratings. What'd you think?
My winner of this novel is definitely Rafik Aziz, because I feel like he's perfectly brought into the story and then perfectly set up to have his own standalone novel in the next one. So he's my winner. The loser is all of the plot holes we just discussed. And my rating, I was pretty high on this book going in. We sort of talked about it last pod. Originally, I thought I was going to put it in my top 5 or my top third, but upon completing it, it's not as good as I remembered. It's really good, but it's definitely in like the second tier, and it's only like that way because of some of these things that don't get addressed. So I'm giving it an A-, like a 9, solid 90, which puts it like right, in the middle sort of tier, at the top of the middle tier. But that's my rating, A-, 90.
Okay.
What about you, Mike?
All right. I think I'm going to put my winners and losers together, because the winner is, this was a fantastic setup of what would come next.
It's a great middle book.
Right.
But it's not a middle book because there's no third book.
And that's exactly why it's also my losers, is because so much is brought up with so little closure. It feels like part one. It feels like, the first act, which, is outside of anybody's control, right? That's just the universe.
Right.
But like you said, Rafik being brought up was brilliant. Lingering doubts about Greta and what happens to their relationship. I'm interested. And if you're interested, that's a good thing. Just Rafik operating the background does so much for me. But I want to know, right? Does the Secretary of State get caught?
Right.
Is he going to play a role?
Exactly.
Because he's our villain, right? He's our villain in the U.S. So does the next book has to address that, right? We have a bad
guy. And Paul
guy.
Cook at the very end sets it up by telling him that Stansfield said something about his wife, and that just feeds into this oh, he's going to be the villain, a villain going forward.
So the Secretary of State has to be the villain. Does he get linked to Cook in any way that becomes public or that the CIA finds out? And then I'm wondering about some of these other characters who showed up. Is there any other role for this police commandant, Neville DeFleury, the priest we talked about last time? He has one little scene with Stansfield where we find out they had some history, but once again, it's just a couple of sentences. So winner and loser is both loose ends, but they're loose ends that got my attention. Because of that, this book is probably flirting with the bottom third for me.
Wow.
It maybe bottom of the middle of the pack. What do we have? 20 books. It's got to be floating around 15, somewhere in that 15th range.
I have it closer to 10 to 7 for me.
Okay. Yeah, maybe it could crack as high as 13 when we finally do this, but it's comfortably there. And because of that, it's a B-. It's an 82%, somewhere in the low. It's in the low 80s. It had some really great things that I want to know more about. It's just a shame that we didn't get them.
If we got that third book and we got everything that we sort of conjectured about, would that change? Would that change this book?
If this ends up at some point in time being part one of a part 2 or 3 story, and then link that together with the American Assassin being the prequel to all of this, absolutely. I think it could be a B+ or A- book.
Right.
If some of this stuff is brought to a close.
Right.
All right, but let's change the conversation because this is going to be overwhelmingly positive. How'd you like the covers?
Well, you know how you like to start off your book review with a limerick? Let me start off by saying cover C sucks. But every other cover is really good. Every other cover is really good. And there's a consistent theme, and it looked like the people who came up with the covers actually read what went on in the novel, or at least read the first chapter about Paris.
Right.
We talk about this all the time, how a good cover to us has to be one of two things. It should be something about the book, or it should be something that's inherent to the theme or flavor of the character, like the main character. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to necessarily have to have a scene of, Irene getting taken, like the one or the motorcade being exploded, but just something that expresses this genre, and specifically Mitch Rapp, not just any sort of thriller, but Mitch Rapp-esque. But all of these do a great job. My favorite has to be cover A or cover G, which I'll just give obviously this is not a visual, so I'll give you a description. Cover A has a black and white Eiffel Tower with the kill shot and Vince Flynn in red, and this sort of cloud over the city. I really like that. And then in G has the Eiffel Tower, but it has this sort of nightscape, but it's navy and dark blue and black with kill shot in red, and in the circle you see a little bit of red, and I think also on the L's you see some blood. Yeah. I don't know. Those two are really good.
Yep.
What about you, Mike?
I'm gonna 100% agree with you on those two, but I got to get this off my chest. Cover C is terrible, but the color scheme is pretty good.
It's the best color scheme of a cover C.
It's pretty good.
It just needs an Eiffel Tower in there. Replace the power lines with the Eiffel
100%.
Tower, and cover C is a banger.
100%. If this guy in cover C were walking on a bridge like he is in cover B, and the power lines were not there, but the Eiffel Tower was, cover C might just would have had the potential to be my favorite. It's got these blue color schemes with a very ominous sky, almost like the Northern Lights kind of thing.
Right,
and the road is slick and it's reflecting off the road. And then Flynn, do you see how Flynn is in the perfect whites of the cloud?
Yes.
So Flynn stands out because it's in black with the white clouds, and these silvery metallic blues are really cool. But other than that, cover C sucks. Moving on. Cover A is awesome.
Put an Eiffel Tower there.
One thing you didn't mention about cover A, why I really like it, Rapp's perspective after he gets shot. He's literally sitting underneath one of these bridges, patching up his wound. Well, this angle is from under a bridge looking up at the Eiffel Tower around the side of the bridge. Like, I could see Rapp looking at this image as he's patching himself up, and then the sky with these fading grays and whites almost look like you're losing consciousness.
Yeah,
like,
I agree with you.
This could be really Rapp bleeding out or going fuzzy as he's literally looking up at a bridge of Paris or the Eiffel Tower, like with his first bullet wound. That's pretty cool.
Yes, I agree.
And same thing with G. Like you said, the blood on the white letters kill shot seals the deal for me, because the kill shot is Rapp shooting the terrorists. Like the text says, Rapp likes to move in for the kill shot, get nice and close. But Rapp almost got his own kill shot. Like, he was hit.
Right.
So I really like the blood on the lettering. But I will say, so that's my gold A. Silver G. I'm going to give the bronze medal to H. H to me is pretty baller. It's again this
looking up at the Eiffel Tower.
What's the opposite of bird's eye view? Groundhog view?
I guess.
Maybe I just coined that. Who knows? Looking up at the Eiffel Tower from underneath with a very ominous sky, dark blues in the sky, light blues and whites in the cloud. I really like the angle on H.
Yeah, so some of these other ones are pretty good too that also have the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah, B. B is a nice nod to A. That's our running man, right? Or in this case, walking man. That's pretty good for a walking man. Running man cover.
And then D, I like the going for the different color. Like, that's a good color scheme with the Eiffel Tower. This, like, I don't know, like cerulean or light blue, and
with the yellow words,
with the yellow kill
text.
shot. Yeah, that's nice. That's nice. I don't know. Most of these covers are very good. Yeah,
except great covers. The book is a B-. The covers are A+, and cover C is only a D, not a complete F.
Not a complete F. So might be the best showing for our covers so far.
I think overall, this is definitely the best overall cover scheme that we've had. Nice. Good pod, my friend.
That's our book.
That's Killshot. It's done.
All right. So next time when we come to you, we will be bringing you a podcast. Don't quite know what the topic is yet. It'll either be we want to do a Stansfield episode because this is the last novel we're gonna see him in. So we want to give an ode to him. We also have we're trying to line up a couple of author series recordings, bonus pods. So haven't quite decided on that, but we will have a podcast for you next week. So stay tuned for that. Again, we need to thank our patrons, including our special operator Sherry F., our special agents George, Matt, Don, Dennis, Peggy, Catherine, Ray, Bridget, Jeff, and Mark. Can't say this enough, but please subscribe, rate, review using Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. You can find us at MitchRappPod.com or on Twitter or Instagram at MitchRappPod. And as always, just let Mitch be Mitch.